So it all started when my mom invited me to host Thanksgiving dinner. At first, it seemed like a nice gesture, but then I realized it was kind of a setup. She said it was to do me a favor. And suddenly, I'm thinking, maybe it's time they saw how I'm really living. My parents had never shown interest in visiting me before, but now I had this beautiful two-bedroom apartment in Harbor Heights. It's in one of the most prestigious areas in the city. So I thought maybe this would finally change their opinion of me. I mean, I had something to show them, right? I wanted them to see that I was doing well, even if they never really believed in me before. So I spent the next 2 days preparing for Thanksgiving. I wanted everything to be perfect. You know, this wasn't just dinner. This was my moment to show them that I wasn't the family screw-up anymore. I'd been living here for a year, but they'd never seen my apartment. It was finally time for them to get a glimpse of the life I'd built, of the success I'd worked so hard for. I started by picking up the best organic turkey I could find. It was like the biggest turkey I could fit in the oven, and it cost a fortune, but I didn't care. I wanted it to be a meal they'd remember. Then I got this fancy wine, the kind that they always talked about but could never afford to buy themselves, and a selection of artisanal desserts from that bakery they loved so much. You know, the one where they always raved about Rebecca's wedding cake. Yeah, I got an $80 tart from there. I wanted to do it right. Next up was the apartment itself. I scrubbed everything, literally everything. I swept, vacuumed, and polished every surface. The place had to sparkle. I even arranged fresh flowers on the dining table. I set up the good china I'd been collecting over the years, the set that felt a little too fancy for just a regular dinner. But today, it was perfect. I wanted to show them that I wasn't just barely scraping by. I was doing okay. More than okay. I was successful. But of course, the day didn't go quite as smoothly as I had hoped. They were an hour late. Standard, really. But it always gets to me. So, I'm standing there, waiting for them to arrive, just hoping they'll be impressed with what I've done. When they finally show up, Dad's already acting like he's on a mission to find something wrong. You know that look he gets when he's sizing you up? Like he's searching for a reason to criticize. Yeah, that. He immediately starts poking around my apartment, inspecting everything with this suspicious air, like he's waiting for some big reveal that proves I'm living a lie. Mom's not much better. She starts wandering around, running her fingers across the surfaces like she's checking for dust. I knew it was coming, but it still stung. Rebecca and Kyle, on the other hand, tried their best to seem impressed, but it was clear they weren't fully sold. Kyle, always the straight shooter, looked around and said, "Nice place?" And then, of course, he added, "Must cost a fortune to rent." And I just kind of nodded. He's not wrong. But what they didn't know was that I wasn't renting. I owned the place. But I didn't feel like getting into it right away. Dad, though, he had to speak up. Of course. He looked around the apartment, clearly still not convinced. And then he started up with his usual line of questioning, all wrapped in his trademark skepticism. "Must be nice to live in a place like this," he muttered, half to himself. And then he looked at me like he was waiting for me to give some excuse. And I just said, "Yeah, it's nice." I mean, like, what else could I say? I didn't want to defend myself just yet. I wanted them to experience the meal first, to see that I could pull something like this off. But, well, that didn't last long. Mom, still walking around the apartment like she was looking for something to criticize, glanced at me and asked, "So, when are your roommates getting home?" The question threw me off guard for a second, and I just blurted out, "I don't have roommates. I live here alone." Mom raised an eyebrow, like she didn't believe me. Dad, of course, had to chime in. He was still checking out the sound system, but he muttered, "Right, sure you do." His voice didn't leave much room for doubt. He didn't think I could afford this place on my own. I didn't even try to argue at that point. I just focused on getting the meal ready. keeping my head down. I figured, let them think what they wanted. Dinner would speak for itself, right? But things only went downhill from there. Dad went on about the fortune I was spending on rent, comparing it to some people's mortgage payments, and I just let it slide. What could I say? I didn't have the energy to keep defending myself. And then there was the wine. He immediately started criticizing it, saying it was too fancy, trying too hard. Seriously, it was just a bottle of wine. But to him, it wasn't about enjoying the dinner, it was about finding something wrong, something to hold over my head. And Mom, she took it a step further, questioning if the turkey was actually organic or just expensive, as though I'd gone to the trouble of buying some cheap knockoff and was lying about it. Every comment they made just chipped away at me. Rebecca, ever the more practical one, added her thoughts about people who live beyond their means. I couldn't believe it. Here I was, giving them everything they'd ever asked for, and they were just tearing it apart. The breaking point came when I served dessert. This tart, which had cost me $80, was from the bakery they all loved, the same place they went on and on about every time dessert came up in conversation. I thought, maybe this will impress them. But no. Kyle took a second bite and said, "This is good. Where did you get it?" I told him. And sure enough, Mom immediately recognized the name. And then, like clockwork, she asked, "How much did you spend on this dinner?" And I had to tell her. I didn't want to, but I did. I said $1,000, maybe $1,500. They were speechless. For a second, there was just silence at the table, and I could feel them all processing the numbers, trying to figure out how someone like me could afford such a lavish meal. They'd already made up their minds. Though, they thought I was faking it. They thought I couldn't afford any of this, and they weren't about to let me get away with it. As the dinner went on, the tension just kept building. It was like every time I turned around, someone else had something to say about how much everything was costing. It started with Dad, of course, because he always has to have the final word on everything. After his first few comments about the rent, it was like he couldn't let it go. He kept saying things like, "Must cost you a fortune to live here." And it wasn't even a question anymore, it was more like a statement, as though he was expecting me to admit that I was living beyond my means. I didn't want to keep explaining myself, but the more he said it, the more my blood started to boil. Then, he really got into it. He started on about the place, poking around like he was some kind of investigator. He glanced around the living room, then the kitchen, and I could see him mentally adding up the cost of every little thing. It was obvious he was trying to find some sort of flaw, something he could use to prove that I wasn't really living this life. He took a look at the couch, the flat screen TV, the sound system, and then, of course, the kitchen appliances. I could see his mind working, calculating, and sure enough, he looked up at me with that look, the one that says he's figured it all out, and said, "How can you afford all this?" And that's when it started to feel like the walls were closing in. I didn't answer him at first. I just kept going with the dinner, trying to ignore the little voice in my head that was screaming, "Just let it go, let it go." But he wouldn't let up. Every comment felt like a jab, like he was trying to make me feel like I didn't deserve any of it. He was making this meal feel like a crime, like I was being wasteful for having nice things. After a while, his commentary shifted from casual observations to outright criticism. He picked up his wine glass, swirled it, and then gave the bottle a pointed look. "I don't know why you're buying wine like this," he said. "It's too fancy, too much. It's all show." And you could see the way his eyes narrowed. It wasn't just about the wine anymore, it was about everything. Every little thing I had worked for, every small victory. It all felt like it was being dragged down. He was treating me like I was pretending, like I was putting on some kind of act. Mom didn't help. She was quieter, but her passive comments were just as sharp. At first, she didn't say much. She poked around the kitchen, pretending to check for dust or whatever, but I could tell she was taking mental notes. It wasn't until we started eating that she chimed in. After Dad went on about the wine, she looked at the turkey and raised an eyebrow. "I'm sure it's organic," she said, "but I'm wondering, how do we know for sure organic turkey doesn't come cheap?" Her words were almost innocent, but there was this underlying doubt in her voice, this little jab that made me feel like I was trying to pull one over on them. I could feel my face getting hot, but I kept it together. I didn't want to let them see how much their words were getting to me. The whole meal was like that. It was like every time they spoke, they were trying to expose something, to uncover the truth behind this illusion they thought I'd created. It wasn't just dinner anymore, it was an interrogation, a game of gotcha. They didn't seem to care that I had gone out of my way to make everything perfect, to show them that I had succeeded. No, all they saw was a kid playing pretend, someone who didn't deserve to sit at the table with them. And then Rebecca, of course, had to get involved. She sat back, listening to all of this, and I could see her judging. She wasn't as vocal as Mom or Dad, but I knew she was thinking it. She always did. She started talking about people who live beyond their means, who try to keep up with appearances, and it felt like she was talking directly to me. She didn't have to say my name for me to know who she meant. The way she phrased it, though, made it feel like a personal attack. She said it so casually, too, like it was nothing. I'm sure she didn't even realize how much it hurt. But I felt it. Every word, every comment, it was like they were digging into me, trying to find something they could hold on to. I could see the frustration building on Kyle's face, too. He kept quiet for most of the meal, only speaking up when he had to. But I could tell he wasn't comfortable with what was happening. Finally, when Dad started on about how much money I must be blowing on my fancy apartment, Kyle threw out a weak compliment about the view. Nice place, like he said, but it didn't have the same warmth as before. It was like he was trying to distance himself from the conversation, to avoid taking sides. But I could tell he wasn't buying the story either. By the time we got to dessert, I was how could I not be? It wasn't just about the food anymore. The words were cutting deeper with every passing second. I tried to stay calm, tried to focus on the tart. I'd bought something special, something I thought they'd enjoy. But, of course, that's when it really hit. Kyle, ever the observant one, asked where I'd gotten it from, and I was hoping that maybe, just maybe, this would be the moment where they recognized the effort I'd put into making this dinner special. But no. As soon as I said the name of the bakery, Mom's eyes lit up. "Oh," she said, "that place is incredibly expensive." And that was it. That was the moment they all turned on me. It was like the whole dinner had been building to this one point. My entire family, sitting there, watching me like I was some kind of fraud. They couldn't accept the fact that I was doing well. They couldn't accept that I had made something of myself. Every single one of them seemed more invested in proving that I was living a lie than actually seeing me for who I was. And I was just, tired. Tired of trying to convince them, tired of feeling like nothing I did would ever be enough. The moment the breaking point came, it wasn't dramatic at first. It was slow, like a ticking clock that finally reached midnight. Dad, still seething about how much everything was costing, leaned back in his chair and gave me a hard stare. "I just don't get it," he muttered, like he was trying to make sense of something. "You've been telling us about all your work, but we never see the money. How can you afford a place like this on your own, and the food and the wine and all this stuff?" At first, I thought he was just making another one of his typical comments, but there was something different in his tone. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It wasn't about the wine or the turkey or the rent. It was about me. It was about what I had done with my life. And it was the first time I realized just how little they understood what I was actually doing. And then, without missing a beat, he started listing things off. You're living in a neighborhood that most people can't even afford to rent in. And I know you don't make that kind of money working some entry-level real estate job. So, what's the deal? Are you borrowing money from someone? Are you in debt up to your ears, pretending to be something you're not? His words hit me like a slap in the face. I wasn't prepared for it. I wasn't ready for him to come out and ask me outright what I'd been dreading for years. How was I making it all work? I didn't answer him at first. I couldn't. I wasn't sure how to explain everything that had been happening in my life. How could I explain to him, to all of them, that what I'd built wasn't some fluke, some elaborate house of cards? How could I show them that this was real? But as his voice grew louder, as Mom and Rebecca added their own doubts to the mix, it became clear that I couldn't stay silent anymore. I needed to defend myself. "I'm not borrowing money," I said finally, my voice surprisingly steady. "And I'm not in debt. I'm making it work because I've been working for it. I've been building my business for 4 years." The words came out quickly, but it didn't matter. Dad didn't want to hear it. He shook his head, like he'd heard enough. "Building a business," he scoffed. "This is a joke, right? What business? You're a real estate agent, aren't you? You don't own anything. You don't have a business, yes? You're just trying to play the part." I could see the disbelief in his eyes, and it was like a switch flipped in my brain. I wasn't just defending myself anymore, Lex. I was fighting for my own existence, fighting for something I had worked my entire life to build. "It's not a joke," I said, my voice hardening. "I buy properties, I invest, and I manage portfolios. I don't just sell houses, I build them, I buy them, I renovate them, I rent them out, and I make money off of them. I've been doing this for years, and it's real. It's a real business, and it's been successful." There, I said it. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. But instead of the reaction I'd hoped for, all I got was more doubt. Rebecca, ever the skeptic, looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. "Oh, so now you're a property investor," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "So you're not just a real estate agent, you're a... what? A property mogul now? Give me a break. You work for a company, you don't own anything." Her words stung more than I wanted to admit. I had tried so many times to explain what I did, to make them see that I wasn't some lost soul, some failure. But instead, it felt like every time I opened my mouth, they just dismissed it. They had already made up their minds about me. They'd already decided I was never going to amount to anything, and no matter how hard I tried to show them otherwise, they weren't interested in listening. But then Dad jumped in again, louder this time. "That's right," he said, shaking his head. "You can't just pretend to be an investor. What kind of business are you running? Buying and flipping houses? That's not investment, that's gambling. You're just getting lucky. Playing with other people's money? You'll lose it all. It's only a matter of time before it all comes crashing down." His words were like poison, and I could feel my blood boil. Everything I had worked for, everything I had built over the years, was being reduced to a joke in his eyes. It was like he couldn't accept the fact that I had succeeded without following the path he had always imagined for me. It wasn't just about the real estate anymore. It was about him accepting me for who I was, for what I had become. And he couldn't do it. "You're wrong," I said, my voice rising now. "It's not gambling. It's about buying the right properties at the right price, managing them correctly, and using that cash flow to build something sustainable. It's not a fluke. Dad, it's a business. And it's been working. I'm not living paycheck to paycheck. I'm not just getting by. I'm building wealth, and I'm doing it smartly." But he wasn't hearing me. He was too busy digging in, too busy clinging to his assumptions about me. "How did you get the money for this? You didn't have anything when you dropped out of law school," he said, You didn't come from money. You didn't inherit anything. So, where did you get it from? I didn't have the patience to explain it again. I didn't want to get into the nitty-gritty of my business plan or how I started with small properties and worked my way up. It didn't matter how many times I tried to explain it. They'd already decided it was a scam, a delusion. They didn't want to hear about how I had built a portfolio from scratch, how I'd taken risks and made calculated moves to get where I was. To them, I was still the same person who had dropped out of law school. To them, I was still the failure. "I've worked for this," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "and I've earned it. I don't owe anyone an explanation for how I've done it. I've done it the right way, and I'm proud of what I've built." But it was no use. I could see the disbelief in their eyes, the doubt that still lingered. "Well," Dad said, "maybe you should show us. Prove it to us." That's when I realized it wasn't about the money. It was never about the money. It was about them needing to feel like they had control over my life. About them needing to keep me in that box they'd put me in years ago. They couldn't accept that I was doing well without their approval. I wanted to tell them, to show them everything, to lay out the facts, the spreadsheets, the numbers, but what would it change? They'd just find another way to dismiss it. So instead, I just sat there, feeling like the walls were closing in, knowing that nothing I said would ever be enough. The silence in the room grew heavier after Dad's challenge. "Prove it," he said, like it was all some game, some trick I was playing. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I had tried for years to show them that I wasn't a failure, that I wasn't just some lost soul without a future. But now, it felt like everything I had worked for, everything I had built, was being reduced to a joke. They didn't believe me, and I could see it in their eyes. They thought I was lying. And for the first time, I realized that no matter how many explanations I gave, no matter how much I tried to show them the truth, they were never going to understand. They had already decided who I was, and nothing I said would ever change that. But that challenge, the demand to prove it, lit a fire in me. I had always held back. I had kept the details of my business to myself, mostly because I didn't think they'd believe me. They had always treated me like the family disappointment, the one who would never amount to anything. But now, they had forced my hand. They were asking for the proof, and this time, I wasn't going to back down. I wasn't going to let them continue living in the delusion that I was struggling. So, I took a deep breath and decided to show them. "All right," I said, my voice firmer than I expected. "I'll show you." And with that, I stood up and walked over to my bookshelf. I had kept a folder there for a while, something that I didn't think I would ever need to pull out. Something that contained the proof of everything I'd been telling them. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't glamorous, but it was the truth. I pulled the folder from the shelf and laid it down on the table in front of them. I could feel their eyes on me, watching every move. I opened the folder and started pulling out the documents: property deeds, acquisition reports, revenue statements. The room was silent except for the sound of paper shuffling, but I could feel the tension rising. As I laid each piece of paper down, I could see their expressions changing, shifting from disbelief to confusion, and slowly to something else. The first document I laid out was the deed for the Harbor Heights building, the one they had all been so skeptical about. "This," I said, pointing to the document, "is the first property I bought. I bought it 3 years ago." I watched as Dad's eyes flicked over the paper, but he didn't say anything. I moved on to the next one. "And these," I continued, "are the deeds for the other buildings I own. I bought the second one about 18 months ago, and I just closed on the third one 6 months ago." I watched their faces as they processed the information, as the reality began to sink in. Dad, who had always been the most critical, sat back in his chair, staring at the documents. I could see his fingers trembling as he reached out and grabbed the first set of papers. He turned them over slowly, like he wasn't quite sure if he believed what he was seeing. I couldn't blame him. In his mind, I was still the kid who had dropped out of law school, the one who couldn't keep a job, the one who had failed at everything. But now, here I was, showing him that I had built something real. Rebecca, who had been the most dismissive of all, leaned forward and grabbed the next set of papers. She flipped through them quickly, scanning the numbers. I could see her brows furrow as she tried to make sense of it all. This says you own all of these properties?" she asked, almost in disbelief. I nodded, watching as the shock registered on her face. Cal, who had been quiet throughout the entire dinner, finally spoke up. "So, you're telling me you own these buildings? Outright?" I nodded again. "Yes," I said. "They're all paid off. I've been using the income from the first few buildings to buy more. I wanted to build something that was sustainable, something that would generate income long after I was gone." The realization was hitting them now, each of them in their own way. Dad picked up the next document, a revenue report, and scanned it with a look of disbelief. "You're telling me this says you made $43,000 in rental income last month?" His voice was low, almost hesitant, like he couldn't quite wrap his mind around it. I nodded again, my heart still racing. "Yes," I said quietly. "That's right. Some months are better than others, but on average, I make about $35,000 to $40,000 a month. The properties are stable, the rents are high, and I've got a good system in place." Rebecca, who had been reading through the property deeds, looked up at me, her face pale. "Wait, so you're telling me that you've been doing this for years, and you never told us?" I could hear the frustration in her voice, but there was something else there too. Something that sounded like regret. "I didn't tell you because I knew you wouldn't believe me," I said, my voice quieter now. "Every time I tried to explain what I was doing, you dismissed it. You didn't ask questions, you just assumed that I was failing, and I didn't want to keep fighting to prove myself. I just wanted to show you that I could do it. But now you've asked for proof, and I'm giving it to you." There was a long silence after that, one of those moments where the weight of everything finally hits home. I could see them all processing what they had just learned. Dad, who had always been so critical, looked down at the revenue report again, his face a mix of shock and confusion. "I don't understand," he said softly. "How did you do all of this? You didn't have anything when you dropped out of law school. How did you come up with the money to buy all of these places?" I sat down at the table and took a deep breath, trying to collect my thoughts. "I started small," I said. "I bought a duplex in the university district and rented out the other half. I used the rental income and my savings to buy the next place. It wasn't easy, but I built it slowly, one step at a time. I didn't want to take out loans or get in debt. I wanted to buy property outright, without any mortgage." The room was still quiet, but I could see the wheels turning in their heads. This was a lot for them to process. They had spent years thinking I was failing, thinking I was barely scraping by. And now, they were finally seeing the truth. I wasn't the person they had assumed I was, and maybe, just maybe, they were starting to understand that the silence that followed was different this time. It wasn't the uncomfortable kind of silence from earlier, the kind where every word felt like an accusation. No, this was the silence of realization, the kind that comes when the truth finally hits. It was like my family needed a moment to process everything they had just learned. For so long, I had tried to show them that I wasn't the failure they thought I was, but now they were finally seeing the real me, the one who had worked hard, built something from nothing, and was proud of what I had achieved. It wasn't immediate, but eventually, Dad was the first to speak. His voice was quieter now, almost tentative. "I think I owe you an apology," he said, not looking directly at me, but I could hear the sincerity in his tone. I didn't respond right away. Part of me wanted to say something, but I wasn't sure what. After everything that had been said, after all those years of being looked down on, could an apology really change anything? But then, Mom spoke up. Her voice was soft, and I could hear the regret in it. We didn't understand," she said, her words coming slowly. "I guess we assumed things about you, about your choices, and we never really took the time to listen. I'm sorry." I didn't know what to say to that either. The apology felt genuine, but there was still a part of me that was hurt. Years of being dismissed, of feeling like I wasn't good enough, couldn't just be erased with a few words. Kyle spoke next, his voice quieter than usual. "We should have asked you more about what you were doing. We never gave you a chance to explain." I could tell he felt bad, but it wasn't like they could take back all those years of doubt and disappointment. In that moment, I realized that maybe it wasn't just about the money, the property, or the success. It was about something deeper, about rebuilding trust, about finding a way to reconnect after years of misunderstanding. I looked at them, really looked at them for the first time all night. "I don't know if things can go back to the way they were," I said quietly. "But maybe we can start over. Maybe we can rebuild from here." And for the first time in a long time, it felt like there was hope. Hope that maybe now they might finally see me for who I really was. Not the disappointment they thought I was, but the person I had become. And that felt like a new beginning.